Hello, Western Civ 104. Welcome to week 14. And we are moving along, getting very close to the end, of course. So hang in there. It was good to see many of you engaged with the material from last week. As I was mentioning, it's a little bit of a change, of kind of a darker turn on the negative aspect of Western civilization. But I think that you've been seeing in my class that I've been teaching a lot of nuance. I hope that that's what you've been seeing. And I think there's a lot of important things to reflect. I posted something on Canada and about Native peoples and their treatment there. And I was going to post something regarding to that being here in the United States still, and I didn't get a chance. I just want to point out something, because we're coming into Thanksgiving. And by the way, I hope you all have a great Thanksgiving if you are going to celebrate it with your family and your friends, and as a moment to be thankful. I think that actually this is one of my favorite holidays in terms of it not being, you know, the consumerism of trying to buy a bunch of stuff. I like anything that brings family and friends together to have a meal and to see each other. But the history of the idea of the natives and the pilgrims, as it's been taught, you know, kind of like in a very naive form, especially that we got in elementary. At least when I was a kid, you know, it was time to get the crayons out and color this feast with the natives and the pilgrims. The reality is that it is a very negative time in the minds of many Native Americans. And I can't remember if I mentioned this in some of the lectures, but once I moved up to Portland, Oregon, I kind of went into a state of shock on this topic. I grew up in Modesto, California, and I've lived around the Bay Area. And in that time, I knew of one person who was from a reservation back somewhere in, I think, North Dakota. And he was a guy that used to come into the cafe that I worked at. Other than him, he's the only one that I met. And for the most part, in my mind, Native American people were the thing of the past. I mean, I knew that reservations still existed, but it's not something that you think about when you're growing up in a place like Modesto. Then I move up to Portland, Oregon, and I go to Washington a lot in Canada, and there are so many natives, people who are originally from here, the ones that lost their land because we are a colonial settler society that was formed, and the violence has been intense and real. If you look, just look up the Modoc War at the end of the Civil War. And you know, after consolidating the West, there were many natives that resisted being fully occupied out here. And there was, I think, like 5 families that were embedded in the lava beds and had almost the entire U.S. Army sent to weed them out. This is how we got to make ourselves great. Okay? So not only the slavery thing, but we're talking very late. I mean, look, this has only been incorporated into the United States since the mid-19th century. And so the friends that I meet up here who are of tribes that speak the language of their ancestors and still practice their religion and still have cultural events, it's made me realize that you can't just reduce this to being the past. And then if you look at what happened in North Dakota over the pipeline issue, and how that was actually the pipeline controversy for the natives there. I'm sure you watched that. I hope you were following some of that. that was very controversial. The U.S. government under Trump forced it to happen at the expense of Native American peoples. There were a lot of arrests. And it also was in collaboration with Justin Trudeau in Canada, because this was a pipeline that was working with Canada. Now, Justin Trudeau is viewed as the exact opposite of Trump, but the reality is that he put on the liberal, shiny, bubbly face representation of doing it, and Trump did the Trump thing. And so for Native American peoples and Native Canadians, it doesn't matter, liberal, conservative, Republican, or Democrat. They know that they're still, that they're not, that their interests are not really relevant for the most part. Still, it's also interesting just to think about in the middle as we discuss about who really belongs here and what this nation really means. Now, I'm not bringing this up actually to make us self-hating. I want us to be self-improving. I want us to be realistic and truthful and honest about what we've been and where we're at, and to really think about that. So that's all I have to say on that. Just to briefly say, I hope you now enjoy going into the Reformation period stuff that we're covering, because this is highly significant history to so many parts of the West. And while that also gets a little bit grim in some of the history there, I'm hoping that the King James documentary is just something that you can enjoy. I think it's a really fascinating, interesting documentary. And the person that does the narration, the British guy, really shows that even if you're not a religious person, to really, it's the impact on the English language and the influence of the King James Bible is just goes without saying. But it goes with saying. There's a documentary on it. It's important. It's significant. So I hope you really enjoy that part. And I have one section of dealing with Martin Luther, which is very good as well. I would always like to do more, covering more on John Calvin and some others, but this will give you a good feel, a good sense of it all. And so, again, I hope you have a great week. Drive safe, be careful. There's unfortunately people always drink and drive on days that are supposed to be, put people in a better state of mind, and then, they get behind the wheel and it's not good. It's not good. So, in any case, peace and blessings to my class. And if you have any questions again or any problems this week, please contact me. I'm sorry it took so long on this announcement. We'll be in touch.